Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're going to learn absolutely everything you need to know about demand. This video is going to end up being a one-stop shop, whether you've heard of the term or anything about it or not. We're going to talk about the law of demand, demand schedules, demand curves, movements versus shifts, determinants or shifters of demand, substitutes versus complements, and then finally normal versus inferior goods. You don't have to have heard of any of these terms. We're going to go over all of it from scratch as if you've never heard any of this before. Starting with, what is demand? Well, in economics, demand actually follows a pretty simple definition. Demand refers to the different quantities of goods and services that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices. Now, there's two key words that you need to keep in mind here, willing and able. Willing just means I want it, but able means I can afford it. So in order for you to have demand for something, you need to both want it and be able to afford it. So maybe I want a Lamborghini Huracan, but if I can't afford it, then I wouldn't really have demand for it. I would want it, but I wouldn't have demand for it. Alternatively, there's a lot of things I can afford, but if I don't want them, then I don't have demand for them either. And that's important. The other two important things to distinguish from this definition are different quantities and different prices. And that ties into part 2, the law of demand. Now, the law of demand is pretty intuitive. It's something you could probably put together using your logic. It says that as the price increases, quantity demanded decreases. And as the price of a good decreases, then quantity demanded increases. I know increases and decreases sound the same, so let me turn them into red and green, and you'll see that they move in opposite directions. That is, if the price goes up, your quantity demanded goes down, and vice versa. And this makes sense. If the price of something goes up, then you'll want to buy less of it. And if the price goes down, then you'll want to buy more of it. And that's essentially what the law of demand says. Now, there are 3 reasons this takes place. The first is diminishing marginal utility. This means that the more you get of something, the less additional value it gives you, or the less utility it gives you. If you have $1 million, someone giving you $100 doesn't mean as much as if you have $0 and someone gives you $100. And again, this is just because the more you have, the less you value one additional unit. Now, this is true for literally everything. This is why if Mark Zuckerberg's walking down the street and he drops a $100 bill, he might not turn around to pick it up, but you best believe if I drop $100, I'll turn around and pick it back up. And again, it just has more value, even though it's the same $100. The second reason is the income effect. And this means that as your income increases, the real price of the good that you're buying falls. So if I make $100,000 a year, the prices of my day-to-day spending might look a little different to me, or might feel a little bit different to me than if I was making $500,000 a year, or if I was making $20,000 a year. So your income definitely skews the way that you look at prices. And the final reason is the substitution effect. And this means that as a rational consumer, as prices go up, you will substitute towards cheaper things and consume those instead and have demand for those instead. That leads us into part 3, the demand schedule. Now, the demand schedule, you can think of it as a table, and it's a table that shows the price and the quantity demanded of a certain good. So for example, let's say we have a good and its price is $5. And at that price, we have a quantity demanded of 2 units. And at a price of $4, we have 4 units demanded. At a price of $3, 6 units. At a price of $2, we demand 8 units. And then finally, at a price of $1, we demand 10 units. Now, what do you notice? Well, you notice that the price is falling. It goes from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. It keeps going down. And what do we notice about the quantity demanded? Well, it's going up, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And they're going in opposite directions. And that's exactly what we said would happen when we looked at the law of demand. As price goes down, quantity demanded will go up. Let's move to part 4. The demand curve. Looking at our table of values or our demand schedule, we can just plot all of those points on a graph, and that's going to give us our demand curve. So here you'll see price is the y-axis or the vertical axis, and quantity demanded, or in this case, I'm using the market for pizza, so I'm going to say the quantity in slices is the horizontal axis. This will always be the case for a traditional supply and demand graph. And now I just take all of these price and quantity demanded points that are on my demand schedule and I put them over to my graph. So you can see there's a price of $5 and a quantity demanded of 2. That's that top point. And then I work my way through all of those points. And that's just going to give me the demand curve once I connect them all. Now you'll notice this is a linear demand curve. So I know it seems kind of weird calling it a curve, but that's just how it is. We simplify it to a linear system to make it a lot easier to do the algebra for without expecting students to know calculus. But because it's linear, it's really easy to find the demand equation. So looking at this example, all I need to do is add a couple of points at the top and bottom so I can extend to both axes. So in this case, I just followed my pattern. At a price of $6, there's no demand. And at a price of 0, I would have 12 units demanded. And now I've extended all the way out. And if you're in introductory economics, whether that be AP Micro, AP Macro, or University Intro, you should know how to find the equation of a line by looking at it on a graph. And if you look at the equation of the line, that's going to give you what's called the demand equation. Now, a standard demand equation always has Q isolated. So here you can see Q is equal to 12 minus 2P. And if you sub in any of the quantity and price coordinates, any of those red dots on this line, it's going to satisfy that demand equation, because that demand equation is the equation for this demand curve. You might also notice I have the inverse demand equation. Now, the inverse demand equation is when you isolate for P. So in the first equation, the demand equation, the blue one, we would say that quantity demanded depends on the price. But in the inverse demand equation, we would say the price depends on the quantity demanded. So we use it a lot less frequently, but they are the exact same equation. They're just rearranged to isolate for the other variable. Okay, so if you need to, I have a separate video on the channel. You can check that one out. I'll link it in the description. And you can check out how to flip-flop between the demand equation and the inverse demand equation and how to rearrange that equation if you need a reminder. But that's not really in the scope of this video. However, what is in the scope of this video is a change in quantity demanded. So a change in quantity demanded is caused by a change in the price of the good. So what happens on the graph in the case of a change in quantity demanded? Well, we're going to move along the demand curve. So here you can see we're at a point where the price is $5 and the quantity demanded at that price is 2. But what if the price were to fall? Well, if the price were to fall to $3, I would move along the curve until I get to this new point here, and you'll see the quantity demanded has increased. It's now 6. And if the price fell even further, down to $1, I'd move along the curve until I got to that point where I am now, and the quantity demanded is now 10. So again, as the price falls, the quantity demanded goes up. But notice how the actual curve's not moving. I'm sliding up and down the curve, but the actual curve itself is remaining stationary. And that's what happens when the price of a good changes. Now, many students will confuse this with something called a change in demand. Now, a change in demand happens when something other than the price of the good changes. And what happens in this case? Well, a shift of the entire curve to the left or to the right. If we shift this entire blue line to the right, we would say this is an increase in demand. Now, if we shift the entire curve to the left, we would say that it's a decrease in demand. So once again, a rightward shift is an increase and a leftward shift is a decrease. So if a change in the price causes us to move along the curve, then what are the things that cause the curve to shift? We call these demand shifters or determinants of demand. And it doesn't matter what you call it, but there are 5 of them. Let's start with the first one. That's the consumer's income. So let's look at the market for a normal good. If you have an increase in income, then you will have an increase in demand because you can now afford to buy more goods. And so that's going to shift the curve to the right. But if you have a decrease in your income, for example, you get fired or laid off, or a decrease in your work hours, then we're going to see a decrease in demand or a shift to the left. Easy as that, right? Well, not quite. You see, that's just for normal goods, but there's something called inferior goods, and they work the exact opposite. So when your income goes down, your demand for an inferior good goes up, and when your income goes up, your demand for an inferior good goes down. And so you might be wondering to yourself,
What in the world is an inferior good that acts so strangely? Isn't that defying the law of demand?
Well, think of inferior goods as the goods that you buy because you can't afford what you really want. So you buy them because your income's low. But if you made more money, you wouldn't buy them. You would buy the more expensive alternative. A really good example we use in economics is butter and margarine. We would say, oh, you buy margarine until you can afford butter, and then as your income increases, you demand less margarine and more butter. Another good example is brand name cereal versus store name cereal, but you get the point. Anything that you purchase because your income is low, but as your income climbs, you would buy less of, that's an inferior good. Let's move on to the second demand shifter, and this one is the price of related goods. Now remember, this is not the price of the actual good itself. That would just move you along the curve. It wouldn't shift the curve. There are two ways that goods can be related. They can either be substitutes or complements. And let's look at substitutes first. So these are goods that you consume instead of one another. You don't consume them together, you consume one or the other, but you don't consume both. And a really good example I like to use is Coca-Cola and Pepsi, because they're basically the same thing. You don't buy both of them, you buy one or the other based on the price. Or I guess if you have a preference, but they taste the same. Let's look at the market for Coca-Cola. Here we can see an increase in the price from $3 to $5. And because the price of Coke increased, we see a decrease in quantity demanded. So we move along the curve from the point on the right to the point on the left. We follow that arrow up. Well, what does this mean for the market for Pepsi? Well, in this case, even though the price for Pepsi never changed, it's relatively cheaper compared to Coke. And so there will be an increase in demand for Pepsi because people are shifting away from Coca-Cola, which now has a higher price, a price of $5 versus $3, and they're substituting towards Pepsi. So even though nothing happened to the price for Pepsi, people are demanding more of it and the curve will shift right. Now, a general rule of thumb is as the price for a substitute good increases, then the demand for the original good will increase as well. They go the same direction. And vice versa is also true. If the price of a substitute good goes down, then demand for the original good will go down because people will substitute towards the cheaper good. Now, this is a tough concept to wrap your head around, but it gets more complicated when you look at complements. Now, complements are goods that you consume together. So here, let's look at the market for smartphones. Here we have the same price increase I used before, except this time it's going to have a decrease in the related good because you consume them together. So if the price of phones goes up, you're going to demand less phone cases, even though the price of phone cases never changed, because a good that you're consuming in conjunction or with is changing its price, then you're going to demand less of the complement as well. And so in this case, they have an inverse relationship. So as the price of the complement increases, demand for the original good will decrease and vice versa. So they move in opposite directions, which is more what you would expect when you consider the law of demand. And again, this is only true for complements. Moving on to the third demand shifter, we have consumer expectations. Long story short for this one is if you expect higher prices tomorrow, then your demand right now is going to increase. You want to capitalize on those cheap prices today if the price is going up tomorrow. Now, if you expect lower prices tomorrow, then your demand today is going to decrease because you would rather just buy it cheaper tomorrow. So if you expect the price to change in the future, then it's going to change your current demand. Again, as a rational consumer, you're going to optimize by spending the least amount of money. And if that means you have to wait one more day, then so be it. But what you expect to happen is going to increase or decrease your demand. And this doesn't have to necessarily be prices. If you think the quality of something is going to change in the future, then maybe that will change your demand. If you think the availability of something will change in the future, that will change your demand. We saw a lot of that happening when people face crisis. They buy a lot of stock of toilet paper, for example, because they don't think it will be available in the future, and therefore it increases their demand right now. Let's take a look at our fourth demand shifter, and this one is tastes and preferences. And this one's probably the most self-explanatory one. Things come in and out of style. You change your preferences from when you're a kid to when you're a teenager to when you're a young adult to when you're middle-aged to when you're older. All of those preferences and tastes will change. Think about it this way. In 2017, everyone wanted a fidget spinner, yet nobody wants them anymore. Why? Well, because people's preferences change. So there's a fall or an increase in demand based on those preferences. The last one is pretty intuitive as well, and this is the number of consumers. As the number of consumers increases, then demand will increase because there's more people. And as the number of consumers falls, then demand will also fall because there's less people. It's that easy. This one is also typically called population for the same reason. Think of it, as your city gets bigger, there's more demand for public services. And if your city were to get smaller, then there would be less demand for those services. Now, part 9 is arguably the most important part for you to consider as a student. These are the most common student mistakes. I've been teaching economics for a long time, and these 4 mistakes are hands down the ones that mess students up the most. And the first one is confusing demand with quantity demanded. Demand is the entire curve. Quantity demanded is a point on the curve. They are not the same thing. So when people confuse them, it leads them into point number 2, which is confusing shifts versus movements along the curve. A change in demand will shift the curve. But remember, the price won't shift the curve. The price will move you along the curve. And people make this mistake all the time, and it's the easiest way to lose marks on that Unit 1 or Unit 2 test. The third mistake that a lot of students make is mixing up the effects of substitutes and complements. I get that you know what substitutes and complements are, but you have to remember whether that means the demand increases or decreases for the related good. If you need to, go back and review where I talked about it in this video and really make sure you understand that section, because it is confused by a lot of students. Along with this last point, which is mixing up the effects of normal and inferior goods. Because inferior goods don't really feel like they follow the law of demand, so they really confuse a lot of students. And again, if you need to, rewatch that section, really read, if you have a textbook, read that section over again, really make sure you understand normal versus inferior goods. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, let me know by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and of course, let me know in the comment section what sort of economic topics or homework questions you'd like to see me cover in the future. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next.